My new knife sucks. How's it going, guys? Kevin Cleary with a knife video for you, and we're going to talk about the experience that I'm sure almost everyone watching this has had, okay? That time where you get your new knife and you've researched and you've waited and you've been clicking the button to see where it is in transit, and finally it comes and you get it out of the box and who knows what could be wrong. It's got horrendous blade play. The lock won't engage or the lock won't disengage. There's some big scratch or mark or break somewhere in the knife. It's dull or chipped. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong. The centering is so bad that the knife stops when it hits the scale because, and I don't mean to just pick on that knife, but here's a CRKT home front. The blade is rubbing on one of the scales and you're like, oh, really? Come on. I bet you, so first thing you're going to do when that happens is go ahead and comment here telling us what happened and how you resolved the situation. By the way, I'd also love to hear from, if you're a knife maker, if you're a manufacturer and you've had, you can give us the other side of this coin, right? You can say, hey, you send a knife back and here's what we go through on our end. Further, just keep in mind that if you make 1,000 of anything, right, some of them are going to be messed up. So any large company is going to have some knives that don't go right. It's just par for the course. Okay, so I know it sucks, but the reality is it's going to happen if you collect anything, right? If you buy anything, right? All of us have bought stuff before. I remember I bought a camera. I got the same camera like 4 times from Walmart one time. I don't know if it was a bad run or if it was a flaw in that particular model of camera, but I took it back over and over again and never could get one that worked. I finally switched to a different camera, and the people at Walmart were happy. They were like, look, I know this is a nightmare for you, just pick a different camera because this one for some reason is not working. So let's get started with how this whole thing goes down and what you ought to realize. Number one, realize that there's an emotional component to this. You've been drooling over pictures of this awesome new knife and you've read articles about it and you've watched YouTube videos about it and you just know it's the most awesome thing that could ever exist and you've been waiting patiently for it, and now it finally comes, and instead of getting to enjoy your new whatever, your new Ontario Rat 1 or your new Cold Steel or Spyderco or SOG or whatever, Kershaw, you are now packing it back up and sending it to the company and not able to use it. I know, disappointing, right? So realize that you're disappointed. I know we all say a knife is just a tool. Frankly, I think a knife is a pretty cool tool, and it's one that we're going to get excited about. No big deal. Just realize that there's going to be some disappointment there, and try to tone it back a few notches when you actually contact whoever it is that you're going to contact about this. Okay, so. Let me speak to the other side for a second. If you're a manufacturer, if you're CRKT or Charade or whoever, and you're watching this, realize that that's kind of what's going on in people's heads. Especially for higher end stuff. My goodness, if you've had to save, and if you don't usually spend a lot of money on stuff, and now you've spent $200 or $250 on a new ZT, and you're so stoked about it, and it finally comes and it's messed up. That the disappointment is pretty big if you've built this up really big in your head. So for those of you who are retailers and those of you who are manufacturers, realize that that's kind of the state of mind that people who are contacting you are in, right? They've been super excited about your product for weeks, maybe months while they were saving up for it. Now they finally got it and it's not all it's cracked up to be, and they're disappointed, okay? So kind of keep that in mind. Also though, there's another element here. It's the inconvenience of it, right? I'm busy and so are you, all right? And especially with certain companies, there's a few steps you've got to take in order to send that knife back. And you go, really, I've got to package this up, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to go to the post office now. My wife wants me to pick up groceries and I've got to fit this in, okay? So there's some inconvenience factor as well. So keep that all in mind and try not to allow your emotions to rule your behaviors really at any time, but especially at this time. So Next is figure out what's wrong. Now maybe not everyone's going to do this, but I want to know what's going on here. So I'm going to go over in detail the knife. Now I do that anyway when I get a new knife. I look into everything and I check the grind and the centering and everything else. But now it's going to be like a fine-tooth comb. I'm going to look at every detail right away to figure out what's causing this problem. Is it something I can fix? Is it something that's totally out of my hands? I want to know what's going on here. And I will usually make a note of that when I send it back. Okay, when I send it back, I'll send it with a note that says, hey, I can see that there's a giant gouge missing from the tang of the blade. Maybe that's why the lock isn't engaging right. Okay, go over it in a detailed way. Try if you can to at least have an idea what's wrong with it. By the way, sometimes while you do that, I've had this before where I started looking over it and I realized, there's just a piece of dirt in the lock, or there's something stopping it from functioning properly. And once I get that out of the way, you go, oh man, it works fine. Okay, so it may be that it's just something that you haven't figured out yet. Or maybe it's just part of the nature of the knife. So let me use the cold steel talwar for example. If you got a cold steel and you notice that the little bit here at the heel of the blade wasn't sharpened, practically every cold steel is like that. So if you start sending them back, like every cold steel is going to have to go back, okay? Because they pretty much all have it with a few exceptions. I've got one exception here, okay? In cold steel, I will say I've had pretty good luck. I did have one that had some up and down play and could send it back to cold steel and it came back perfectly fine. But that's something to kind of think about. Is this just part of the functioning of the knife? Or is it a known problem? So this Spyderco Farad K2, if you talk to anyone or look at anything about this knife, right away you're going to know that it has a problem with some lock stick, but that the lock stick goes away after it breaks in a bit. Okay, so don't get this out of box and go, oh man, I can't unlock it, forget it, send this thing back to Spyderco. Because when they send you a new one or not, you're going to get another one that has lock stick because every one of them does, okay? So maybe it's that, all right? So it could be something that just is a common feature to this knife that you just have to wait till it works in, all right? Now, you come to the conclusion, yes, I've got to send it back. What do? Well, make sure you follow the rules. I recently talked with someone, this is kind of funny. I recently talked to someone who got a new item. They decided they didn't like it and they just put it back in the box and hit return to sender and boom, gone. Well, the problem with that is there was no way of tracking it. She wanted her money back right away and the other person who had sold it was like, whoa, I don't even know where it is. Why did you do it that way? There's a way in which things have been organized so that this can work properly. All right. And if you think for a second about the fact that a lot of these companies get hundreds of items, right? They've got to have some system in place in order to kind of track yours. Okay. By the way, it also may be a long time. I've sent stuff back to CRKT, to SOG, to Spyderco, Strider, probably a couple others that Boker. No, Boker and Kershaw I'll speak to something else in a minute, but it's always a long time, okay? One of the things I always try to do is I'm very cordial, but I'm also very clear about this is the problem and this is what I'm kind of anticipating happening here. Sometimes they'll have, CRKT, for example, you have to go on their website, print off a document, you fill in the document where it has to be filled in, and that goes with your knife, okay? Keep that in mind. Some of them, Spyderco, now I do not like this, but Spyderco, let's see, I love Spyderco. I have a lot of great Spyderco knives. They want you to send return shipping, which is infuriating because I've already paid once to ship this from the retailer. I'm going to pay again to ship it to Spyderco, and then they're wanting me to pay again to ship it back to myself. All right, which to me is kind of baloney. Now I know what they're saying is maybe it's not a warranty issue, and if it isn't, then we don't cover return shipping, okay? And that's all they're saying. I said, you know what? If that's true, I will. Anyway, different discussion for a different day. So there are places that will want you to follow specific rules. Kershaw is amazing. You go on their website, you fill in what's going on, And in fact, oftentimes you don't even need to send it back, because all of the hardware pieces, you know, I don't have do I have a ZT here or a Kershaw? No, I don't. So I'll use the Steer KT, but you know, all of these screws, all of the pocket clip, all the stuff like that attaches to the knife, Kershaw will just send it to you. You just, you know, fill out the thing, say this is the problem. They're amazing. Okay, really are. ZT, I've bought ZTs secondhand in horrible shape and decided I'm going to fix it up, right? I'm going to restore this to a really nice knife. And I actually I was totally upfront. I emailed Kershaw or Kai and said, look, I got this knife secondhand. It's in really rough shape. The screws are in horrible condition. And they sent me new screws and a new pocket clip. I mean, they're really, really good. There's no question. Follow their rules, whatever they are. Make sure you check it out before you send the thing back. Make sure that you're clear and fair in your expectations. Don't be unrealistic also. I've seen people send things back and I don't know what they're expecting. You know, they go, you know, my Cold Steel Ultimate Hunter, the blade is messed up on it, so I'm sending it back to you, Cold Steel, and I want you to send me, you know, a new Ultimate Hunter with a better blade, and you know, a gift certificate for $100, and you know, I want my an apology letter printed and hung out on the side of your building, and you know, they got this list of demands, and I'm there going, wait a second, right? The only sort of obligation that company has is to restore you to whatever, you know, make sure that you get whatever you paid for. Okay, and most companies I have found very fair in doing that. Lots of companies have been great. Good story, Warriors and Wonders. I got a Real Steel, whatever Real Steel's lockback is. They have one that looks really gorgeous. I love the look of it. I love the G10 pattern. It was an awesome looking knife. I'm like, oh, I really want one. Got it. It was awesome. It looked great. It was comfortable in hand, but it had blade play. So I sent it back to Warriors and Wonders. I said, this one's got blade play. I contacted them first, by the way. Sent it back. This one's got blade play. They said, look, I said, please check and find another one that doesn't have blade play. They tried, they got back to me, and they said, we don't have any. They've all got blade play, and we only had, whatever, 1 or 2 left. 2 or 3, whatever. It was a small number. And we'll just give you your money back. I said, okay, great. Great experience, great people, you know, Warriors and Wonders. SR Knives is another great example. I got an SE from them. I can't remember if it was my 6 or my 3. It doesn't really matter, but it came without screws to attach the clip to the sheath. And I sent him an email, and literally he overnighted me the screws that I needed. Okay, so great move, SR Knives out of Toronto, super impressive. Okay, and so I've had lots of good experiences. I mean, it still sucks when you get your item and you go, what? I can't use this because there's no screws to attach the clip to the sheath. What am I going to do now, right? But he got them to me the next day, and that was pretty cool. Okay, now there's one other quick thing that I want to deal with here, and what if it's a person? What if you've traded with someone, or you've bought a used knife off of, you know, the forums or some other, or off of a Facebook page or whatever, you get it and there's an issue? Well, I've spoken to this a little more in a different video, but first off, make sure that you're extremely clear and honest throughout the transaction, okay? Then make sure you get the item, you open it up, you go, something is wrong, right? This is not what I expected. Tell them right away. Yeah, you know, immediately send a message. And, you know, I know this is going to make it difficult for some people. You need to adopt some sort of internet rules, okay? I don't buy knives very often unless I can see other things that give me faith in this individual. I really depend on the feedback system of various websites, and if a person doesn't have some good feedback and some recommendations, I probably won't do business with them, even if they're selling a knife that I really want, okay? So use those systems that are already there. You know, eBay has a feedback system, Amazon does, most secondary marketplaces, forums and stuff, Facebook pages, they usually have a way of checking on that. But then, you know, be clear, say, hey, I got this Rat 1 in the mail, and you said it was perfect condition, and there's a piece of paint missing here off the clip. That's not cool. I'm going to send it back to you. Okay? Most people, by the way, if you send it to me, I'm going to be, if this was, let's say I sold this knife and it does have a teeny bit of paint missing right here, and someone didn't like that, I would not try to come up with a new price or anything like that. I would say, nope, we send it back, I give you your money back, you give me my knife back, deal's done, okay? And that's probably the safest and best way to handle that, is just do the exact opposite of whatever you did. Don't try to make some new deal now that you're not happy. And if you did that to me, I would just refuse. I'd say, no, send it back to me, I'll send your money back, that's what we're doing. Okay, if you come up with a million different things, I'm just going to be like, forget it, you're out a knife. Because often that's, by the way, if you don't know this, this is a common scam. Someone buys a knife, sometimes they use it, okay, and they damage it. Or sometimes they just claim they didn't get it and they go, oh yeah, your knife never came, or it was broken and I want my money back. Now they get their knife for free, right? That does happen pretty commonly. If you look at The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in a number of different forums, you can find those kind of stories. So you have to be aware of that. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, let me hear below some of the experiences that you've had along these lines, and not just bad ones, okay? I'd love to hear the good ones as well. And that's the phone, so I'm going to get going. We'll talk to you soon.